Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
East.
East.
This is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Ames.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
This is Pete A. Turner from the Break It Down Show, Lions Rock Productions, and we have a interesting album fight tonight. When we started this whole thing, we've always used Huey Lewis and the News' album Sports as sort of our proposed greatness bar. If you're better than that album, then you're truly in one of the upper level albums. Now, there's still plenty of arguments left to be had about that, but that's sort of where we put the mark. And for the first time in an album fight officially, we're going to have that album go up against Bon Iver. So I'm going to go ahead and let Phil do the introductions. Phil?
Today's album fight is a 9-round matchup between a poet-lyricist and some doo-woppers. In the red corner, we have the melancholy and metaphoric musings of Bon Iver with his debut studio album from 2007, For Emma Forever Ago. And his opponents in the blue corner, we have the rock and harmonica and harmonies of Huey Lewis and the News with their third studio album from 1983, Sports. Let's get ready to ramble. Take it away, judges.
All right, and since we're on a roll, let's go ahead and have Richard do his analysis. Richard.
We have another one of those classic critical darling versus wildly popular pairings this week. For me personally, though, this one isn't really that close. For Emma Forever Ago is a beautiful and sincere album, and Sports is an album that was wildly popular at one time, but suffers from poor aging and serious, and I mean serious, cheesiness today. What I think doesn't matter, to be perfectly honest with you. What matters are the numbers, and the numbers did pick a winner. But it won't be that easy. Let's take a look. Looking at 13 categories, For Emma takes it with 6 rounds to Sports getting 4. So that should be open and shut for Emma Forever Ago, right? Wrong. Because there were 13 categories, and there are 3 tied rounds. And those ties can go either way. And if you do the math, we could have a card or two going the other way, going to Sports. It all comes down to who's judging here. If the judges skew older, it could go Huey Lewis and the News. If it goes younger, or people that actually have good taste in music, this thing could be a lock for Bon Iver. So official prediction, 5-4 for Emma Forever. I think we'll have a split vote. I can't rule out a potential upset here, though. If Huey Lewis takes this, don't be surprised, but I think Bon Iver pulls it out here. And I want to add a little extra game for us to play. Anytime someone says, this song just gets my toes tapping, I want you to point at your device that you're listening to this on, whether it's your computer, your phone, or whatever, and I want you to laugh and scream, "Dad nerd," really loud. Let's have fun with this. Let's see if it works. Anyway, back to you guys.
Okay, so we're going to get a little crazy with the analysis and a little side game. Okay, fair enough. Let's see how this goes. The judges tonight are, of course, Phil, triple duty green, because he'll be doing the artwork as well as judging, so thank you for coming down here and doing this. And, of course, we have Brian Theis from Benicia, the hometown Crow. And we have actually also a neighbor now of sorts in Orange County here. We've got Tony Alvarado in here with us. Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm doing great, Pete. How are you doing?
Man, I'm excited about this. This is a weird one. You've done other weird ones. What did you pull from this fight in your research, Tony?
Well, this was my first time listening to the Bon Iver album in its entirety, if you will. You know, I heard the one single a few times, and you know, Sports is like this legendary album that came out when I was a kid. I mean, me and my old man, we wore that album out so many times. So it was going to be interesting to see how the kind of new age folk stood up against this classic album that just seemed, front to back, just solid.
Yeah. And Brian, this is your fight. You made it. Bon Iver up against Sports. What are your thoughts?
I love both of these albums. I was 7 or 8 when Sports came out. And, Heart of Rock and Roll, I listened to that song a million times when I was a kid. Some guy, I was at an apartment with my mom's boyfriend one day, and I saw Huey Lewis in the new Sports. Is the cassette sitting on this guy's coffee table, and I'm looking at it, and he goes, "Oh, you want it?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." So when I took that thing home, and I just listened to the heck out of it. Bon Iver, when it first came out, I listened to it all the time at work. It's just one of those albums that I would put on at work and listen to twice a week just to fill an hour.
Yeah.
These albums are both just incredible to me.
And Phil, you've got a pretty big catalog. Was Bon Iver part of your knowledge base?
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying it right now. So it's Bon Iver, like good winter in French. Most definitely. So my current, the music that I'm listening to most is this kind of new American folk, and that includes like Lord Huron, and definitely Bon Iver is in that category as well. So I'm familiar with, I had never listened to this full album, but I'm familiar with and like Bon Iver quite a bit. And then as a kid growing up in the Bay Area in the 80s, I'm definitely familiar with Huey Lewis and the News, and this album I had as well and wore it out. And I probably didn't even have to listen to the songs. I knew I can sing all the lyrics, and I haven't listened to this album in 20-some years.
Yeah, this album is easy to dismiss for a couple of reasons. One, it was sort of, I don't know, they used it in American Psycho, and it's sort of a funny thing, and it kind of took away from it. But you also, unless you were from that era and you realize just how many hits are on this album, it just kept coming. It never quit, and the hits are not just like, top 20. These are top 10 hits over and over again. It's a strong album from start to finish, and I guess the best thing to do right now is to go ahead and get started. So we'll go ahead and go round 1, Flume versus Heart of Rock and Roll. Tony, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so Flume was a great opener to this album. I thought the lyrics are fantastic on this album, top to bottom. This is not what I expected at all from this album. But, man, that first track on Sports, Heart of Rock and Roll, just gets you going. It just sets the stage for what's coming. I gave this one 10-9 to Huey Lewis. I thought that this was a solid opener for Huey Lewis as well, and it just rocks.
Phil?
I probably listened to the playlist multiple times before I started scoring it, just to warm up my ear over the last 2 days. And my initial thoughts are, as I listened to it without scoring, wow, okay, Huey Lewis, especially as it starts out with Heart of Rock and Roll, is just going to crush Bon Iver, and he's not even going to have a chance. And then I sat down with my album fight listening ears, and for round 1, I started hearing things in for example, in Flume that I hadn't heard before. And, it's a very simple yet sophisticated sound that we're getting from Bon Iver in his little hunting hut in outside Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And the warm guitar intro is, I think, a constant across all these. He just has that nice acoustic sound, but then this mysteriously some weird sound. And I'm like, okay, what is that? Is that a stringed instrument? Is that a guitar that someone's playing like with a bow? I couldn't figure out what that was, but it caught my attention, and it was something I'd never heard before. And then he jumps in there with his falsetto, and it's like, okay, this is something different. One thing in both these albums, there's a common theme that I came across in multiple tracks, and that's this heartbeat sound that kind of permeates the music. And Flume definitely had a heartbeat to the song. The percussion in the background was giving us a nice heartbeat. The one lyric from this song that stood out to me was, "Leaving rope burns, reddish ruse." This guy's a poet. That's clear. His lyrics are definitely telling a story in his prose. And then we go to Heart of Rock and Roll.
And this is, wow. I mean, again, we have the heartbeat, right? So with the harder rock and roll, it just starts out with a heartbeat, boom, boom. But this heartbeat might be a little too literal for my album fight listening ears, and it's full of catchy hooks. And if you listen very closely, when they're talking about New York, the guitar, it replicates the sound of a New York street with the honking. Honk, honk. There's a lot of creativity in the song, but then I just felt like it was just, I don't know, it just drug on too, like you could have shortened the song by a minute and been perfectly content, but it just drug on and on and on. And so I ended up going 10-9 Flume over Harder Rock and Roll, primarily because I just felt like they just drug it on and just wanted to show their musical chops with the harmonic or with the sax and the horns, and no. So I give it to Bon Iver.
And Brian.
All right, Harder Rock and Roll, it's so catchy. I really like the heartbeat intro. You got the hand claps and the saxophone. Those are all good things. When I was 7, 8, 9 years old listening to this, the line, backs it with a lot of flash, and it really, really kicks him in the pauses, right? You listen to it, oh, he's going to say this. No, he's not going to say it. It's radio friendly, right? It's just the simple stuff he did. As much as I appreciate the hand claps and the saxophone, I agree with Phil. It gets draggy towards the end. I think he could chop off the last 45 seconds to a minute. And, Flume, this whole album, it's a rebirth of sorts for Justin Vernon. He's in this remote cabin in the woods in Wisconsin. He's trying to get away from it all and make music. I think this song is the beginning of that. I am my mother's only one. That's enough. Sky is womb and she's the moon. He's all alone, but he's safe and warm. For a song and an album that was recorded in a cabin, it's amazing how you can just close your eyes and picture the music and picture the scenes that he's painting for you. And that being said, I gave this round 10-9 to Flume.
All right, so a little bit of a split decision. We'll see how this continues. Let's go ahead and go round 2, Heart and Soul versus Lump Sum. Phil, start us off.
Well, I didn't realize growing up listening to sports that Heart and Soul was a cover. And I didn't realize that until I did some research into the song. I didn't really care. They do such a great job with this song. The guitars that jump in, the guitar at the 55-second mark exactly just grabs you in the song. It's amazing. And the percussion is unique and interesting throughout the entire song. And as you get about 2/3 into the song, there's a nice guitar solo. And then after that guitar solo, this song just disappears. And I don't know what happened to it, but it just disappeared. And then, so this is a cover. The original, or the first recorded version of the song was by Exile in 1981. And so I went and listened to the Exile version to see just how did Huey Lewis and the News change it up with their doo-wop, funky blues sound. And oh my God, it sounded almost identical, just not as polished as Huey Lewis and the News. So I could not give this to Huey Lewis and the News because it was almost a direct copy of what Exile did. Just they did a better execution, but I couldn't pinpoint anything that was unique and different that Huey Lewis and the News brought to the table. And then we look at Lump Sum, and one of the influences in this song in particular was the Vienna Boys Choir on Justin, and you can hear that in the intro. And again, his acoustic guitar comes in, and in this song, it provides the rhythm of the song. I listened to the song multiple times, and every time I listened to it, I liked it more and more and more. So even if it wasn't going against, if Heart and Soul wasn't a cover, I think Heart and Soul would have won. But Lump Sum grew on me, and I had Lump Sum beating the cover version of Heart and Soul 10-9.
That is interesting. Okay, Brian, how about you?
All right, Lump Sum. Yeah, I agree with Phil. This is definitely a song that grows on you. For me, I really like the strumming pattern that he has on the guitar. It's dun 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 pause, dun 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 pause, and I listen to it. Probably just try to listen to the guitar like 10 different times. Just is it a down up down pattern? Is it down 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 pause? I just really thought that accompanied the lyrics beautifully, but he gets really metaphor heavy in the lyrics, and there's just a lot to dissect there if you're trying to listen to the song and figure out what he's talking about. Heart of Soul, like Phil said, it is a cover, and they don't stray too far from the original footprint, but everything is more polished. Everything sounds brighter when Huey Lewis and the News do it. The guitars sound sharper, the various percussive elements, the drums and the bells and whatever else they're banging on, it just sounds punchier. And to me, it was just a more fun listen, and I gave the round 10-9 to Heart and Soul.
All right, lots of back and forth in this one. Tony, keep it going.
Yeah, I'm with Brian on this one. I thought the Huey Lewis song, it's a cover, but I thought they did a great job with it. I thought it's one of my favorite songs on the album. I think it's my third favorite song on the album. So it's in the top third, I guess, out of the 9. But I really like how it just flows. I like it has good sound. It's a really fun song to me. I really liked it. The Bon Iver song, I thought it was kind of a step down from Flume. I thought that, like Brian said, there's a lot to unpack in there, and maybe I'm just being a little simple, and I just didn't want to go through all the work to figure out exactly what he was trying to say. I just wanted after hearing the Huey Lewis song, and I'm in a good mood, and then now I've listened to the Bon Iver song, and I wasn't so happy after that. I gave this one to Huey Lewis 10-9.
Oh, wow. All right. This is exciting. This is fascinating. I love Bon Iver is such a great album, and it's just interesting to hear how you guys are looking at this. Let's go ahead and go round 3, Skinny Love versus Bad is Bad. Brian, start us off.
Bad is bad. Cool is the rule, but sometimes bad is bad. This song, it's campy, cheesy, 1983 dirty barroom blues. It's got that nice strolling beat, and Huey's storytelling just makes it work so well. Across the street, a neon sign, all you can eat for $1.99. All that old stew is the baddest in the land, but $1 worth was all that I could stand. Even the harmonica solo in the song, it seems over the top, but it just works. And that's a credit to Huey and the band that they can make this song so much fun to listen to. But it's going against Skinny Love. And I think this song, it was featured on at least once on every network drama in the late, 2000 aughts, and what a song it is, Skinny Love. We're not talking about a meaty love or a healthy love. This is love. It's just hanging on by a thread. Not so much because of love, but because of they feel the need to be loved. He jumps right into it with, come on, Skinny Love, just last the year. Pour a little salt, we were never here. Staring at the sink of blood and crushed veneer. They're just trying to make it through the year, with the pain that they're going through and the false front of this relationship. And it's the way he presents it. Just, wow. So, this was an easy 10-9 for Skinny Love.
Tony.
All right. So this one, I'm the opposite of Brian, because Bad is Bad is my favorite song on the album, as cheesy and corny as it is, just because, like you said, it works. It's just one of those songs that's just, I don't know, I could just see myself just sitting in the pub, just listening to it and just kind of grooving along to it. And I love his storytelling as well. I love the last part of the song where he says, "I love you, Huey," was a note I read, but there's a strange pair of shoes underneath the bed. And that just hits for me. And yeah, Skinny Love's a good song. That's the one that I remember hearing on the radio the most. The lyrics are very good, and he is saying, let's just hold on. Bad is Bad is just one of those songs that it just works. And when I found out that Huey had written that song when he was with hanging out with Thin Lizzy, and that Thin Lizzy actually played that song but at a faster pace in some of their shows, I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So I gave this one 10-9 Huey Lewis.
I like it. Yeah. Let's keep on going here. Let's go. Phil, give us your round 3.
Well, so I'm not going to be as kind as Tony on Bad is Bad. I found it to be a little too bad. The doo-wop, doo-wop is one of Huey Lewis and the News. They're known for some of their, bringing in that old doo-wop sound. But in this song, it just felt really gimmicky. They had really good harmonizing, and the harmonica was a nice touch. But I don't know if you ever saw the show Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? This song reminded me of Rockapella singing on that show.
I loved Rockapella on that show.
And
Hank's Hammer.
I couldn't get it out of I could not get it out of my head when I heard this song. And then you're going to get Skinny Love, which is one of my favorite Bon Iver songs. And just the lyrics, my. I love that lyric. My kids sing that lyric when it comes on. They're 8 and 11. I mean, they shouldn't be singing Bon Iver. I mean, this guy's so deep but anyway, the simplicity of the song is fantastic. It's not complicated. The lyrics, staring at the sink of blood and crushed veneer, it makes you think, like, what are you talking about? And then I found that almost like there were two characters that he was bringing to the vocals. One was, nice and compassionate in the falsetto, and then there's an angry voice that comes out, and it's just kind of maybe not good versus evil, but these two characters that are, hey, I'm angry, but then, hey, I can step back and reflect. But I had this 10-9 Skinny Love over Bad is Bad.
All right. Well, let's go on to round 4. This ought to be interesting. I Want a New Drug versus the Wolves, Act 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and have Tony start us off. Tony?
All right. Well, I'm just riding the Bay Area train right here because I Want a New Drug is like, and this might, I try to put my album fight listening ears on and when I'm listening to these songs, but I can't help but when I'm listening to Huey Lewis, I just think back to when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old listening to these albums and just all the fun things about it. This song is just telling, he's trying to get what he wants, and I love everything about that. The Bon Iver song, I thought this one kind of was maybe a minute and a half too long, especially when it got to the end. It's just repetitive, and I think that Huey Lewis is in a good place. He's having a great time. He mixes it up with the little Bad is Bad. Then he's like back to the fast pace with I Want a New Drug. I thought that was really good. 10-9 again, Huey Lewis. He just keeps on bringing it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and go Phil.
So I agree with Tony. I Want a New Drug. So the one thing I'm noticing in between these two albums is you got one guy sitting in the cold Wisconsin winter in a hunting cabin, kind of singing about being by himself and being a little bit depressed about his past relationships and things like that, versus Huey Lewis and the News. They just want you to get up and get out of your chair and move. And I think we have a contrast in emotional states with these two albums. And I Want a New Drug is exemplifies that kind of let's get you moving. The guitar from the get-go, it revs you up and like you just popped a bunch of no-dos or drank 10 cups of coffee. Boom. And then it's got a catchy guitar hook. Like almost all these Huey Lewis and the News songs have a catchy guitar hook that just snags you and won't let you go. Interestingly enough, this is a love song. Who knew, right? This is a love song by Huey Lewis and the News, and great sax solo. Wouldn't expect anything less. I mean, we all know the song. What we didn't know was it was only written in a couple minutes. Can you believe that? I mean, it's a fantastic, catchy song, but it was only written in a few minutes. And then what I didn't know about this song was Huey Lewis was slated to help write the score or the theme song for Ghostbusters, but he had to pull out due to conflicts with Ray Parker Jr. wrote the Ghostbusters theme song, and Huey Lewis ended up suing Ray Parker Jr., claiming that the Ghostbusters theme song stole his melody, and they settled out of court. Apparently, Ray Parker Jr. did steal the melody from Huey Lewis. So I didn't know that little tidbit. Sorry, I didn't even talk about the Wolves. I'll do it really quickly. The one thing that was different and unique about this song was the use of multi-track vocals to provide depth. And so I feel like Justin's now expanding as he's sitting in this cabin. He's able to do more and be more creative and add things. I agree with Tony. It was a little long and there was some odd percussive elements towards the end of the song. Yeah, so I had it 10-9. I Want a New Drug over The Wolves.
Alrighty. Brian?
Yeah, you're both wrong. You know, in the Wolves, you got the breakup and you got the breakdown. You know, it starts off, someday my pain will mark you. Harness your blame, and walk through. You know, there it is. You know, someday you'll feel like I do, but for now, just pack up and go away, you know. As the song goes along, it feels right. You do start hearing those two voices that overtracked. You know, one's lamenting, you know, what might have been lost, and the other one's saying, don't bother me. And then you got this one final, what might have been lost, and then you got that cacophony of sounds that Phil was talking about. You got the banging, grating, crashing. You know, that's his breakdown. You know, he's running around. His pots and pans and dishes and books and CDs are getting thrown all around the house. And then I think that's the end of Act 1. You know, the song's titled "The Wolves," Act 1 and Act 2. And then Act 2, he goes back to the someday my pain, but he sounds just broken.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero, co-host of the Break It Down Show and fellow producer here at Lions Rock Productions. And I'm proud to announce our newest show. It's called Justice. Season 1 is going to be a deep dive into some of the cases I personally worked on as a licensed private investigator, and you'll get a unique view into the criminal justice system that may just challenge some of your personal notions about how it should work and open your eyes in ways you never imagined. So keep your ears open for Justice, a brand new podcast from Lions Rock Productions to iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
He goes back to the someday my pain, but he sounds just broken. And I think that's probably the original voice just breaking down. But I can also see it being the don't bother me voice from the previous act that's actually starting to feel the pain. And it's going up against I Want a New Drug. Yeah, this is an interesting round. It's that contrast that Phil mentioned. We got this breakdown song against this love song. You know, first off, for me, as a child of the mid to late 80s, this song and Nancy Reagan are eternally paired, right? We've got the first lady in her red dresses telling us all to say no to drugs. And then we got Huey Lewis in the news talking about looking for a new high. But yeah, it's a love song. You know, he wants that drug to mimic the euphoria of being with his lover. I love the driving sounds, the saxophone, you know, the over-the-top imagery. You know, he's looking for a drug that won't make him nervous or won't make his eyes too red or make his face break out. You know, it's like an after-school special or like a growing pains style 1980s warning about drug use and signs you look for in your friends. But in the end, though, I gave this one to the imagery that I saw in Wolves, and I gave it to him 10-9.
Brian, were you impacted at all by all the videos? Because that's one of the things that Huey Lewis and the News did well, was get on MTV and do a great job with especially this album.
I have seen all the videos in my life. I intentionally avoided them in the album fight.
All right, fair enough.
I just wanted to focus on the songs.
Yeah, no, I get it. Tony, how about you?
You know, I knew about the videos. Like, I think the video, I don't want to give too much away, but I know the video for If This Is It is kind of one of those that you always remember with the heads on the beach.
Yes.
But I was the same. I mean, yeah, we've seen him all before, and he was great at getting on TV. But no, I didn't even think about the videos when I was reviewing these albums.
Now that we're through round 5, just past the halfway point, I wanted to check in with you guys, and we're looking at the scoring cards. Thus far, we're tied. Does that surprise you at all, Phil?
It surprised me. So on my scorecard, I had Bon Iver taking the first 3 rounds, and I was like, what the hell is going on? That's not how I saw this turning out. You know, maybe Skinny Love, but the first 2, especially in my preliminary listens, I was like, there's no way that it's going to be Heart of Rock and Roll and Heart and Soul. No way. And in my deep listen, you know, it showed that it did beat those 2 Huey Lewis songs. But now, as we, you know, enter round 5, I feel like maybe Huey Lewis and the News is going to turn it on a little bit.
Yeah. Brian, what about you? Does it shock you to hear that it's tied up between all 3 judges right now, just in terms of total points?
Yeah, it does, actually. 3 songs by Huey Lewis that are 4 songs, heck, so far, that are just radio hits, MTV hits, you know, Heart of Rock and Roll, Heart and Soul, you know, Bad is Bad, and I Want a New Drug. They're all songs that I sang along to the entire time I was doing this album fight. So, I'm surprised that weight hasn't carried Huey Lewis out to a good sized lead here.
Yeah. And what about you, Tony? Any thoughts halfway point points wise, the whole thing's knotted up. With all the disagreement aside.
Yeah, I'm super surprised. I thought that the basically the upbeatness, that's a word, of the Huey Lewis album, I thought that would just destroy the Bon Iver album, and Bon Iver's hanging, and so I'm very surprised.
Well, let's go ahead and see what happens in round 5. Walking on a Thin Line versus Blindsided. Go ahead and start us off, Brian.
All right, Walking on a Thin Line. Back when I was in an album fight and we had REM, I stated that I deducted credit from Orange Crush because I thought it was too sugary poppy for being about the Vietnam War.
And you got in trouble for that.
Yeah, Richard disagreed with me, but I'm going to stand with what I said, and I'm going to do the same here to a degree. I know that REM has the range to make that sound more serious. I don't know if Huey Lewis and the News quite has that range. I think the lyrics have power, about vets returning home, walking on a thin line straight off the front line, labeled as freaks, loose on the street of the city. I know when my dad came back from Vietnam, he told me a couple of stories, especially about going back to college, that would back those words up. But the delivery and the accompaniment, it is that fun, poppy Huey Lewis and the News package. And I think they try to make it heavier. They have the bassy synth sound in the intro to make it sound darker, but it just doesn't get there for me. And Blindsided, this is another song that's heavy on the metaphors, but this one to me is more visual. Riding your bike downtown, the black crow against the white snow, the taut line. These are all things that I can visualize. What do they mean? I'm going to give you my take. The crow, it can be a symbol of death or an omen of death, and I'm getting that somebody is dying, but he feels like it should be him. He's crouching like a crow, watching through the window as this is happening. He repeats, for the agony, I'd rather know. And he kind of spins out of control, asking, would you really rush out for me now? Would you come out here to save me if you knew that it was me? He feels like he's not worth saving. The words, they're coming more frantically, and the music starts to spin out of control, and they snap back. Taut line, down to the shoreline, the end of the bloodline, the moon is a cold light. The death has happened, and now he says, my feet melt the snow, for the irony I'd rather know. He's still alive. The snow is melting under his boots. And he feels like that's ironic, like he should have been the one that died. And all that, this round wound up being a knockdown for me. 10-9 for Blindsided. Or 10,
oh, wow.
8 for Blindsided.
The first knockdown. Holy cow. All right. Tony, what about you?
So at this point, listening to Bon Iver, I'm suffering from, I called it melancholy overload. I know that, the story of him in the cabin, and he's going through all of his losses, and he's trying to overcome them, and he's just surrounded by snow, and it's just, he's just I could just picture him just holed up there, and it's just coming down, and he's got nothing but white as far as he can see, and I'm sure that's adding to his mood. But I'm just like, enough is enough. Now, saying that, Walking on a Thin Line is probably not the best song on this album by a bit. And I remember, not really knowing what the heck it meant when I was first listening to it, but I thought it had a catchy tune. And then the more I started listening to it and the older I was getting, the more I appreciated it. And I was like, yeah, this, I kind of get this. I understand what they're trying to say here. I liked how Huey Lewis, in such a song with a message, tried to keep it upbeat, and I thought that was important to the song, and it just fits right in with the album, kind of like a transition onto that side 2 here. I gave it 10-9 once again to Huey Lewis.
All right, more of the same for you. You got Huey Lewis finding range and blasting Bon Iver in the nose. Phil.
Oh yeah.
How do you have it?
Well, this is probably one of my closest rounds, I think, between the two songs. I'm looking back at my notes. I don't recall that I had anything that was this close. So round 5, it could have gone either way, in my opinion. But I think it really came down to the message. And I get what Brian's saying with Walking on a Thin Line. The message may not necessarily match the tone of the song. I mean, in my notes, I have exactly what Tony just said. It's a very catchy tune. Hey, this is a catchy tune. But can you have a catchy tune with a serious message? I don't know. But at least it started out with an ominous intro that that said, hey, maybe this is a little bit different than what you're used to from Huey Lewis. But then it jumps in and it's a rockin' song. We go to Blindsided, and again, we got Justin using that guitar as the rhythm or the percussion of the song, and and I hear what sounds like another heartbeat in this song, and again he uses the multi-track vocals, except in I don't know if you listen to this song in headphones, those multi-track vocals, he uses it's in stereo, so one is in your left ear and one's in the right ear, which I found is it like that you got the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, that kind of thing. It was very interesting to me to have those two voices and one in each ear. And then he's telling the story through his poetic verse. It was really, really close round for me, but I went with I liked the message that Huey Lewis was trying to get across in Walking on a Thin Line, so I had that winning 10-9 over Blindsided.
Wow. All right. A close one. Let's go ahead and go round 6. Finally Found a Home versus Creature of Fear. And Tony, why don't you start us off?
All right, so I was listening to Creature Fear, and I'm going along listening to basically, I just, once again, it just seemed like he's in the same point. It's just going on and on and on, and woe is me, and then it just ends. And that really bothered me. Like I just stops, and then I hear the opening chords to Finally Found a Home, and I looked and I was like, wait a second, did I miss part of the song? Because this thing just seemed to stop for me, and I was waiting for the rest of it. So I went back and I listened to it again, and I felt like he had something else to say, and it just, nope, that was the end. Finally Found a Home. It's a good song. I like it. I like what he's trying to say there. I like that he's talking about not being, like the kid that he's supposed to be, that everybody wants him to be, and then he turns out to be this rock star. It's kind of cliche, but I kind of dug it. But that Creature Fear, the abrupt ending, just really stuck with me and really bothered me. So 10-9 to the Bay Area boys again.
Nice. You've got a theme going. All right. Yep. Well, how about you, Phil? How'd you do round 6?
Creature Fear has, and I get what he's trying to do, right? It's Creature Fear. So it has these really haunting vocals in the intro, and it starts out with a very simple sound. The chorus jumps out and scares the crap out of you. Like this chorus comes out of nowhere. Boom. Boo. And scares you. And then, like Tony was saying, then the song just abruptly ends, and so I too was like, did I miss something? Did the song get cut short? And I went back and looked at it, and nope. And so I'm like, did the creature get him? So I was a little, maybe I didn't understand the song or what he was trying to do, but it caught me a little off guard that it just fell off the end of a cliff. And then Finally Found a Home. It's a nice catchy tune from Huey Lewis and the News. Who would have thought these guys could do catchy tunes? The intro, though, really, I'm listening to it, I'm going, did Bon Jovi sit in on this one? Because it had a very Bon Jovi vibe. And then it is, so I'm starting to see a pattern here. Huey Lewis and the News is following a formula. And most of these songs have their little catchy hook.
Yes.
There's definitely a formula involved. But the one thing that was different that I wanted to note was Chris Hayes really shines on the guitar in this song, and give him a shout out for really making himself separating himself from the rest of the band in this song. I had this Finally Found a Home 10, Creature Fear 9.
All right, Brian, close out this round for us.
All right, yeah, Creature Fear. The title of the song, the way it's written, is Creature Fear. Like Creature from the Black Lagoon. But I actually hear Create Your Fear. And so you're gonna have to hear me out on this one. The song, it's in 2 tempos. You got the slower melodic parts where he's lamenting and doubting his actions. And should I have done this? Did I do this wrong? And then he picks up the pace and he's yelling at himself. Don't do this to yourself. You're tearing yourself apart. The last couple verses, you can really hear it when he says, "Don't let it form us. Don't let us form us." The Creature Fear. So did he foil his own? Is he ready to reform? He's like, cut it out, you Nimrod, you're ruining yourself. The one thing, both of them mentioned it already, is it ends too abruptly. And for me, it ends too abruptly because in my album fight, snake style playlist, it goes straight into the ba-da-da. Finally found a home. And here we go. I said it before in an album fight, but I have a major soft spot for songs about making music or the power of music, like Jukebox Hero by Born or I Still Believe by Frank Turner. Even The Heart of Rock and Roll, was kicked off this album. And this is one of those songs. He's been lost, been in and out of love. He's not fitting in, but here in this band, making this song, he's at home. It's just a fun song. Like Phil mentioned, he's got the cool guitar. It's got a real nice beat, popping drums. And that's enough to swing this round to Huey, 10-9.
All right. Well, that's a bit of a surprise. Here comes what I think is going to be an interesting Burford round here. Round 7, team versus If This Is It. This might be it. Let's see how we do. Tony, go ahead and start us off this round.
So I thought If This Is It was just, it's the quintessential single from this album. I thought, it's very, very catchy. Once again, like Phil said, we have a pattern here. We have a formula. And, I was on a previous album fight with ZZ Top, and ZZ Top has this formula where they're just going to, do what they have to do, and you're going to like it. They're going to play 3-chord songs, and you're going to like it. And they're going to do that the entire day. And Huey Lewis is just doing their thing. They got a catchy song. I think the line that I liked the best was the one where I think it goes, you've been thinking and I've been drinking. And I think we've all been there many times. And that kind of relates. I can relate to that. And I didn't think the Bon Iver song, short song, and in this format, it just didn't play. It just, Huey Lewis this is the round for me where he's been pushing, and finally he knocks Bon Iver down, 10-8.
All right, a knockdown, pretty big deal. Phil, how'd you have it?
Yeah, I agree with Tony. If This Is It, the guitar in the intro just it sings. In my notes, I have it. It sings beautifully. The guitar is doing some of its own vocals. We reintroduced the doo-wop. This time it's not doo-wop, it's oo-wop, but we'll count it. And then the harmonizing really, it made me think of the Beach Boys. I was like, wow. It almost, I don't know if it's if they're tributing or honoring the Beach Boys, but it really gave me that Beach Boys vibe. And then we go to Team. You got the bass and the snare. They're setting the tone, but this is just an interlude between two songs. It's a transition piece, and it's not really something that I don't think is meant to stand on its own, especially not in an album fight against If This Is It. So I agree with Tony. I had this 10-8 Huey Lewis knocking down Mr. Iver.
Yeah, another big one. Wow. All right. Well, let's see what Brian has to say. Brian?
If This Is It. Skinny Love was Bon Iver's song about a relationship that was hanging on for the sake of hanging on. And this is how Huey does it. No metaphors, no interpretation required. Just, hey, if you don't want to be together, just let me know, we can move on. That's not going to hurt me. It's well done. A little bluesy, a little schmaltzy, but it's straight to the point. And it's going up against Team, which I guess I'd describe it as a marching song. There's no lyrics, which never does well on an album fight. There's some interesting sound with the bass and the whistling. The song doesn't really tell me anything. It kind of reminds me of the children's song, The Ants Go Marching One by One, Hurrah, Hurrah. In the end, Huey gets back that point from the knockdown earlier and gets his own 10-8.
Another knockdown. An absolute annihilation in that round.
It was a straight knockdown round, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if Brian, have we had one of those that you can remember?
Oh gosh, probably.
Yeah. But nothing that stands out.
Yeah.
But, these albums are going to keep going, so let's see what happens here in round 8 for Emma versus You Crack Me Up. Phil?
So let's start with You Crack Me Up. This is we're on track 8, round 8. This is the first song on this album that made me go, yeah, this album was made in the 80s. And it just, that synthy sound just gave it away. Every other song, it's almost timeless, the rest of these songs on this album on Sports, except for this one. That synthy 80s sound, just like they couldn't get away from it. And that's going against For Emma. And it's just, this song's a very beautiful song. The introduction of the horns was fantastic. And the Emma supposedly is, Justin has said that it's not a person, it's a place that we get stuck in, and it's a pain that you can't erase. Well, I don't believe him. I think he's just trying to hide. Emma was a girl. Emma was the middle name of Sarah Jensen, who played sax in one of his earlier bands called Mount Vernon. So he can try and say it's not about her, but I think it's about her. But it's a beautiful song, and I had that beating You Crack Me Up 10-9.
All right. Well, let's have Brian. How did you have round 8?
Okay, for Emma, if team in the last round was a march, maybe it was him marching off to do battle with this mythical Emma, the titular entity that sent him into this tailspin and landed him alone in a cabin outside of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. The line, saw death on a sunny snow, it takes me back to that image of the black crow on white snow and Blindsided. Later he confronts some of the issues from Skinny Love and says, go find another lover to bring, to string along. With all your lies, you're still very lovable. I think now that he's confronted Emma, I'm putting Emma in quotes because, like Phil said, there was an Emma, but there wasn't an Emma, and there might have been more than just Emma that led to him being in this cabin. But now that he's confronted her, I think he's turning a corner, and you can hear that on the way out of this song. There's the trumpet and the trombone, and it's like they're playing two different songs. The trumpet has this bright, uplifting sound, and the trombone is dark and draggy. And at the end of the song, I hear the trumpet winning. And You Crack Me Up, yeah, I agree totally with Phil. This is a fun song. I really like it. It's got that generic 80s fun song beat. Maybe this was the transition piece between Huey Lewis and the News being the biggest little bar band in the world to being the movie soundtrack band that they became. And this song has that 80s teen movie soundtrack feel. The story about the older lady trying to play it out and act young, it's cool here. He's calling her out and cutting her down, but he's not being too mean about it. He's just having fun. But in the end, this was Bon Iver's round 10.
All right. Well, Tony, close out this penultimate round here. Are you going to stick with the theme here that Bon Iver got up off the canvas and gave it right back to Huey Lewis and the News?
Well, Bon Iver most certainly got off the canvas. I found that this was the most upbeat song on the album. And considering that I feel like I've been trapped in a snow cave for the last 7 songs, I like that. I like the story that it's telling. And I went back and looked up the lyrics as I was listening to it because I thought that it was interesting, and I looked back and it looked like it was meant to be a dialogue, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You Crack Me Up, I thought was the weakest song on this album. I thought it was kind of like they've got the hits out, and we have to put out 9 songs to satisfy the record company, so here's number 8. And although it's a fun song, I just didn't think it was as good. So I've got the round streak ending for Huey Lewis. I had this 10-9 Bon Iver.
Yeah, you were rolling through with Huey all the way until this round.
I was just a Huey homer for 7 rounds.
Well, let's go ahead and bring these fighters out for the last round. Round 9, Stax versus Honky Tonk Blues. Brian, close us out.
Honky Tonk Blues. Wow, it's a Hank Williams song. Charlie Pride did a great version of it. And Huey Lewis and the News, they do just what you want them to do with this song. They kick it up a couple of notches, they speed it up. The guitar and piano, they just both really pop. I called earlier Huey Lewis and the News the biggest little bar band in the world, and for a bar band, this is the one that gets the dance floor filled up and moving. RE Stax, regarding Stax, I read where Justin Vernon said that he added the RE to the title to amplify his point and let the listener know that this song was about the stacks. So let's get into what he says about the stacks. He says, on your back with your racks as he stacks your load. In the back with the racks as he stacks your load. In the back with the racks and you're unstacking your load. The first two lines, the load's getting stacked, things are piling up higher and higher, and everything's led him down into this desolate cabin is getting stacked up. But the last line, he's working through that. He's unstacking the load, and he's processing everything. The crow, it makes another appearance, but it's not dark and ominous this time. The crow is teasing him, dangling his keys, playing keep away. Those keys, they represent the answer that he's looking for. In the last verse, he says, "This is not the sound of a new man or a crispy realization. It's the sound of me unlocking and you lift away. Your love will be safe with me." There it is. Nothing much has changed. He's still himself, but he's finally able to let this Emma go. He'll always love her, but he's able to move on. In the end, on the way out, there's silence. And then you hear the sound of someone entering the room and checking the answering machine. Beep. There's no messages. He doesn't need to contact her anymore. He's moved on. And that right there gives him around 10-9.
10-9. All right. And then let's have Tony's analysis for round 9.
I think Brian pretty much nailed it. I really liked Restacks. I thought that it was a really great ending to the album. I thought as well that he seemed to finally come to peace with what was going on, and he's starting the road to recovery. And I after following up for Emma, I thought this was a good song because it's like, okay, now we see that he's turning the corner and he's going to move on in another direction, and finally he can leave this cabin. Honky Tonk Blues was a fun song, good cover song. It does get the dance floor going, but I thought that Restacks following for Emma was really strong, and so I gave this one 10-9 to Bon Iver.
Wow, this is just a back and forth fight. I mean, come on, Phil. The last round, we're super close here. Let us know what you think.
So, in regarding stacks, and Brian, your analysis is just off the charts with, reading into all the poetry and everything. Just incredible. From a musicality point of view, the falsetto vocals, again, by Justin here are absolutely gorgeous. And the interesting thing that I noted was the guitar stays out of the way of his vocals and just lets the vocals shine and lets the poetic storytelling happen. All My Love Was Down in a Frozen Ground. I mean, this guy is, he is a poet trapped in a cabin in cold Wisconsin. And then he's able to provide this nice music sound bed to his poetry and actually use the lyrics as part of the musicality. So in this particular song, his vocals provided extra grit and texture. So in the chorus on your back with the racks as the stacks of your load, in the back with the racks and the stacks. So these acts that he has, back, rack, stack, they provide this nice texture as he's reciting them. And it's incredible artistry. And then we go to Honky Tonk Blues. I listened to the original Hank Williams, and in this particular case, now we have Huey Lewis and the News doing what they do to somebody else's song. Right when this song kicks off, it's "Hang On for a Ride," and the piano, as Brian mentioned, the piano and the guitar here are absolutely impressive, and the energy and the tempo I found were much more compelling than the Hank Williams version, which almost made it feel like I wanted to go to sleep. But at one point in this song, I didn't hear Huey Lewis anymore. I heard a Hank Williams impersonator. Like, what happened to Huey? Where he lost his voice in the song and he started sounding like Hank Williams. If you listen to the two songs, you're like, yeah, he is. He's trying to sound like Hank Williams. So based on that, and then it's a cover and the strength of regarding stacks, I had this for Bon Iver 10 to Huey Lewis and the News 9.
All right, well, that wraps that. Let's see what the analysis is from Richard.
If you go back to the pre-fight, we said split vote. This definitely was a split vote. We also said this could go really one way or the other. And boy, did it go one way or the other. one extreme, the other extreme, and then perfectly down the middle. And I think that speaks a lot for both of these albums. These albums are what seem to be a little bit polarizing. You either kind of get it or you don't with them. On one hand, you've got this kind of morose, sad introspection on a breakup. And on the other hand, you've got this really boring, cheesy-ass dad nerd rock that some people seem to enjoy. I don't know why. It wasn't that great back then, and it's still not great. But anyway, that's my own personal opinion. I'm not too terribly surprised about this decision, though. It kind of makes sense to me. At first, when I saw the numbers, my brain almost kind of melted. But then really looking at it and thinking about it, and then thinking about how the numbers were with the pre-fight, this all makes sense. This is one of those fights. Styles make fights, and these are two drastically different albums. And it's kind of neat to see what happens when they get in the ring, and I think we have a good microcosm of what people probably think about this overall. So, hey, cool. Good job, everyone. Hashtag dad nerds. Later.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, it is an unusual fight with unusual outcomes. Fellas, I don't know if you're scoring at home, but I will tell you guys, here's what happened. We have a split decision, no decision. And we have Brian finding it to be 86-83 for Bon Iver. And then Tony going the other direction, 88-82 for Huey Lewis and the News. And then Phil, he has more rounds going to Bon Iver, but that knockdown that he gave Huey Lewis and the News kind of balanced that out. So he ended up having it 85-85. Brian, thoughts?
Yeah, I was really surprised at the way my scorecard played out. We just did Redheaded Stranger a couple weeks ago, and it was a concept album. This isn't a concept album, but it's a theme album, and
sure.
This theme permeates throughout the album, and it can be a grind of a listen. Like Tony said, he kind of got snowblind fatigue there in about round 6 and 7. I was really surprised, especially the strength of Huey Lewis and the Sports, and the fact that 6 singles came off of this album. The fact that I had it swinging towards Bon Iver actually surprised me in the end.
And then, Tony, you had it similar to me, and when I scored it, my unofficial CompuBox number kind of mirrored yours. But I found I got myself into a groove with Huey Lewis and the News, and it's kind of rainy here where we live today, and I was like, I just didn't, Bon Iver put me into that ice cave like you were talking about, and my mood definitely was wanting more Huey Lewis in the bar with a long neck having fun. What tinted your flavor?
Pete, that's a great analogy. I mean, it was just kind of like, when you think about it, it's just kind of adding on to the dreariness, and there's a point where no matter what the band is, like, enough's enough. Give me something fun that I can listen to and get all these cobwebs out, and like Brian said, 6 singles coming off of Sports. It's one of the best albums of the 80s. I was super surprised at how, not necessarily how my scorecard came out, but how all 3 of us came out. I thought when I was initially thinking about it, I'm like, this is a cakewalk for Huey Lewis. No, Bon Iver, that's, if I want to listen to Iron Wine and Mumford and Sons, and we'll throw them all up in a ball.
Whoa, do not lump Mumford and Sons in with Bon Iver. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's kind of like, that's kind of what I thought of when I was first looking at it. I'm like, I'm sure I've heard all these songs before. But I'm super surprised how Bon Iver has held its own in a different genre, and he's doing his thing, and it holds up. So that was surprising for me.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we definitely saw this fight in the same way, where I was surprised at how well Bon Iver did. I will tell you this is a little bit of insight. We were going to have Todd Nemeth judge, and he's like, I just can't do Bon Iver. I tried. I listened, and I don't want to just say negative things the whole day. So he took a pass. So there is something with the tone that he takes that hits people sideways, and we wanted to create a fair fight. And so Tony was great and stepped into the lurch for us and filled out his card, and I appreciate you for doing that. Brian, this was your fight. We haven't quite got a decision. Let's see what Phil thought and what kept him. Phil, what do you think?
I think that it's important not to let your misconceptions or what you remember about a particular band. I mean, I feel like back in the early 80s, see, I was 13 when this came out. So when Sports came out, you know, I was a Walnut Creek kid, and a family at my church was, or, you know, someone that was in my Sunday school class, his uncle was the drummer for Huey Lewis and the News, right? So like, oh, I'm kind of related to Huey Lewis and the News somehow tangentially. And so I feel like I came into this fight like, oh yeah, I know like I said, I know every lyric of these songs as they played out. I'm like, wow, I don't even need to read the lyrics. I know them. And versus the flip side on Bon Iver, I'd never listened to this album, but Skinny Love pops up on my Lord Huron Pandora channel quite often, and so I'm familiar with that sound. And I was surprised that, one, I didn't realize this guy was such a poet and had something to say that was beyond just senseless lyrics, right? And so that was the important thing to me, was really taking time to listen to his lyrics, and probably all these other singer-songwriters that are kind of this new American folk that I'm kind of listening to now, really diving in a little bit deeper into what they're trying to say and what's the message they're trying to get across, as opposed to Huey Lewis is pretty literal in what they're doing, and there's not a whole lot of metaphors going on. But it's fun, and me personally, I like to be positive and have fun, uplifting music, which is Huey Lewis by definition. But I really do dig this whole Bon Iver sound and where that's going, even though it is a little melancholy.
Yeah, a little bit of melancholy going on. I definitely felt that, and maybe just wasn't the mood for me today. Fellas, we've got us a fight. It was a tie. Are we all okay with that? Just real quick, one word, Tony. Are you okay with this tie?
You know, after hearing what Phil and Brian said about it, I am okay with it.
Okay.
You know, we can show that different albums can coexist.
Yeah. And what about you, Brian? Do you feel like you kissed your sister, or are you all right with this tie?
I don't have a sister, actually, but yeah, no, I'm cool with it. You know, like I said, I was surprised with how my scorecard turned out. So to see somebody else who's not as familiar with the Bon Iver album as I am to judge it differently, I got no problem with that. No.
Yeah. Phil, are you happy with the tie that you created?
I'm not really happy with the tie, but
what's your sense then? What album do you think was really better, but the score just doesn't reflect that?
Well, I feel like the Bon Iver album For Emma Forever Ago is much more artistic and creative versus Sports, which follows a formula. I swear there's a record producer sitting behind Huey Lewis and driving kind of the direction, or Huey Lewis himself. He's like, I know what's going to sell, and this is what we're going to do. Whereas I feel like, you know, Justin really sat himself in this cabin and just poured his heart out, and that's the result we got in this album, which I feel had, you know, even though it might be hard to listen to on a rainy day, it definitely is, I feel like, more artistic, or there was more of it was more real, I guess would be a good way to put it.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess I'll say this. The disclaimer is this: we love this music. We put these albums together because we want to see what happens. You know, Brian and I built this fight. We're going to have some more great fights coming up. We're not being negatively critical of things. We find nits, we pick them, but we also love to celebrate this music. And I think as a norm, people who do this and listen to this add music to their collection. And what's better than that? I know that Phil and I last week got a chance to go interview Stephen James, and that show will be out soon. But just to meet a singer-songwriter who's really in the midst of doing that and creating it, there's no way that you can meet that guy and not just be on his side. So whether it was Justin or Huey or Johnny Cola, when you hear these people talk, when you experience them, when you hear their music, you're going to be moved in a positive way, and that's the point here, is to just celebrate these bands and celebrate friends as we all get together tonight on an evening and put in some work. And so, fellas, I appreciate each of you taking some time. We'll come back. Boy, next week is going to be crazy. We're doing, get this, Beastie Boys versus Green Day. And so that's going to be wild. So, fellas, thank you each very much. And we will do another one next week.